Now, one of my favorite things throughout the day to do is have my awesome cup of matcha. Usually, I'm drinking matcha plus protein. I love, absolutely love some of the flavor profiles that were produced, especially the cinnamon bun. Absolutely love it. Now, I drink matcha on a regular basis, at least one cup a day, and there is a significant difference between the caffeine I get from matcha and the caffeine I get from a cup of coffee. And that's what I want to talk to you about right now. Why is it that matcha is a lot calmer in terms of the caffeine that you get versus a cup of coffee? Now, the key difference between them is the fact that matcha has something called L-theanine. So let's talk about that for a second. Now, brewed coffee, typically a cup of coffee has 80 milligrams of caffeine. 1 teaspoon of matcha, I like 1 teaspoon, but in general, you're using a half a teaspoon. But 1 teaspoon has 60 milligrams of caffeine. So yes, slightly less caffeine in matcha than there is in coffee. However, matcha has more caffeine than a regular cup of green tea or black tea because you're consuming the whole leaf. Now, in coffee, the caffeine is usually free. The molecule itself is free and it's not bound by anything. It's rapidly absorbed in the stomach and the small intestine, and it peaks in the bloodstream within 30 to 45 minutes. Okay. That rapid spike activates the sympathetic nervous system. It increases your adrenaline and cortisol, and that's what causes jitteriness, anxiety, post-peak fatigue. Now, matcha caffeine, however, it behaves differently because it's delivered alongside three things. It's delivered with L-theanine, that's also in the matcha. It's delivered with catechins, which are polyphenols, and it's delivered with fiber and chlorophyll that's part of the whole leaf that's ground when you're consuming it, right? Now, these compounds, they slow the absorption of food in your stomach and your intestine. They bind and modulate the caffeine absorption in the gut, and they flatten the caffeine peak curve so it doesn't spike. So that's why you get a lower peak stimulation, and it lasts a lot longer, usually 4 to 6 hours. Now, let's talk about the brain. What is the effects on the brain? I want to start with L-theanine. What is L-theanine, and how does it affect the brain? So L-theanine actually crosses the blood-brain barrier. Now, that's not common for a compound to be able to do that. It the structure is very similar to glutamate, which allows it to cross the blood-brain barrier and interact directly with the systems that you've got, the neurotransmitter systems that you've got in your brain. It actually increases something called the alpha brainwave activity. Now, those waves are usually associated with relaxed focus, creativity, and complete mental clarity without drowsiness. So this is the exact opposite of what caffeine does with overstimulation. So you've got L-theanine in your brain modulating other neurotransmitters. It reduces the like you can't get anxiety overload. It's calming, anti-stress, and it improves the mood, motivation, focus. So you've got caffeine on one side pushing the button on the brain on. And whereas L-theanine on the opposite side is keeping the system stable, keeping the anxiety down. Now, L-theanine has been shown to reduce stress-induced cortisol release as well, and lowers psychological stress response. So like your heart rate, blood pressure, right? It lowers those stress responses. So that's why matcha rarely, if ever, produces shaky hands, racing thoughts, or that coffee anxiety, the sweats that you get. So when you have caffeine and L-theanine together, you get improved attention and reaction time. You get reduced distraction, increased focus, and it completely blunts anxiety and jitteriness. It doesn't allow them to take over. And that's important. That's the difference between coffee without L-theanine and matcha that has L-theanine. Now, one thing is critical though. L-theanine doesn't block coffee. It just optimizes it. It allows it to do its thing, but without all the negative side effects. But then the question is, why does matcha feel like it lasts longer? Well, let's talk about that. Matcha um, causes slower caffeine absorption, like we discussed, and it uh, lowers peak blood caffeine absorption as well. So there's a lot of buffering in how much of that caffeine is absorbed into the system. And that's why you get the smoother onset, longer plateau, and then a much gentler, tapered drop versus a sudden crash like you get with super absorption of caffeine in coffee, and then you're done with it and a super crash afterwards. So matcha's caffeine enters the bloodstream more slowly, reaches the brain alongside L-theanine, and L-theanine shifts neural activity into a calm yet alert state. So now you're delivering focus without all that overstimulation. And that's why drinking matcha during the day is a little bit different than coffee. You don't get that sweaty jitteriness, overexcitement, and you feel focused, calm and focused. And that's the one thing I really love about matcha, on top of the antioxidants we talked about.